Good morning, happy Monday. It's Terrie from TLC Dog Grooming. And I wanted to jump on. It's been a while since I've done a live stream, and it was interesting because I had a customer in last week, and I was asking her, I said, how do you like the content that I've been putting up? And she says, it's okay, but you know what? You do a live stream. Hi Beverly, how are you this morning? Thanks for hanging out with me. She says, it's okay. But she says, when you do a live stream or you do a video, she says, I'm there, I'm all over it. And that's not the only customer that said that. So I thought, okay, I got to get crack-a-lacking and start doing more live streams. And it's the same customer that was in here, oh gosh, it was a couple months ago. And she was asking me about the warts on dogs, and she wasn't referring to her dog, but she was referring to a dog in her neighborhood. Sorry, while I fix my cushion. She was referring to a dog in her neighborhood, and it had been to a groomer, and it had been completely shaved down, and it looked a bit scary. It upset her. So we got into this conversation about warts, and I thought, you know what, that is a topic that really, really upsets people. And here's why. A lot of times, if a dog's a white dog, Bijans get a lot of problems with warts. But there's a discharge that will come from those warts. Not all dogs, not all, but it's a common thing for this to be, it'll weep, and there'll be a discharge, and that weepy discharge will get caught and hung up in the hair of the dog, okay, obviously. And when owners don't brush the dog, don't comb the dog, don't bathe the dog, and that wart or warts, because usually there's multiple warts, right? You one here, one here, one here, and before you know it, by the time the dog's Audley's just getting up to stretch. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks, sweetheart. When you get a senior dog. Hey, Debbie. How are ya? Thanks for hanging out. These warts, the discharge will get all wound around the hair, and then that'll mat. And then that mat connects to other hair, and before you know it, you've got all these little, quite often, you'll have a wart, and then you'll have a mat that's this size all the way around the wart, okay? So when they come into the grooming shop, and people tend to not bring them in because they're worried that the groomer is gonna cut the wart. And there's not a lot that the groomer can do about it. It's kind of like a speed bump, right? You just go over it gently, right, when you're going yang, 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 to try and get through matting. That's when you've got the problem. So there's an issue there. There's a piece there that doesn't get discussed. People are keeping themselves in the panic of not bringing the dog into the groomer because they're afraid the groomer's going to cut the warts, take the top off of the warts, lop off the wart. There's all kinds of stories that people run. And it's unfortunate because sometimes some warts, all you have to do is breathe on the dang thing and it's bleeding, right? There's nothing that the groomer can do about it. There's nothing that can be done. It's just, you can take time, of course, and do your best to not bump into them. But when you've got a clipper that's going over it and you've got a dog that's moving, all he has to do is move into you and you've knocked it. You see, like it's a challenge. So I see a lot of dog owners that are very, very, very angry that they've been in somewhere and they think that the warts have been cut off. And the likelihood of that being the truth is unlikely. But so you've got all of these warts all over the dog, and the owners aren't bathing, they're not brushing, they're not combing, because these warts keep people stuck in this fear and panic of things getting worse, okay? And they just don't know what to do. So when they do land at the dog groomers, the dog is usually so matted and so dirty that you have to take it really, really, really short, which really exposes the warts. And it's a kind of a good thing in a way, because then you've got less hair, because if they're going to be a weeping wart that's got discharge, you've got less hair for that discharge to stick to, okay? So there's that piece, but it doesn't look very nice. The shorter the hair, the better, probably, because it's getting light to the skin, and the skin's able to breathe. So there's that piece of it. I think my biggest recommendation would be to do the best that dog owners can do to keep the dog clean, right? Because it's the oil and it's the dirt that discharge sticks to, and it's. Well, you have a great week too, Beverly. Thanks for hanging out. If you got any questions, by all means, type them in. Keeping them clean is probably my #1 piece of advice. And if people would get a flea comb at the pet store, and when they realize that they've got a wart that's a weeping, discharging type wart, they can go in with that flea comb and they can pick at that debris, and they can keep that area clear, because the more debris that you've got and discharge, the more bacteria, right? The more it sits flat against the skin and causes skin breakdown and trouble, and bacteria and fungus and all those nasty things start to attract to that area. And if you've got multiple warts with this thing happening all over the body, you're getting an image of what it's like. That's, yeah. And I feel bad for dog owners that have these dogs with a lot of warts. And they're always senior dogs. And that's another challenge in itself too, because you got a senior dog and say that they're not very steady on their feet anymore. All they do is sleep at home in their bed. They don't even go out for a walk anymore. They go out for a pee, they go out for a poop, and they come back in, crawl into their bed. Okay, that's usually the type of situation that you've got with a dog that's got a lot of warts. There's not a lot of moving. Then they get on a grooming table, and my God, it's like a marathon for that 12 to 15-year-old dog, right? He's now running a marathon and he's exhausted. But so say he's got a wart here, and you're coming down with your clippers and you're shaving it, and you're holding the skin with your thumb. You've got your thumb over top of the wart so that you don't bump into it. There's so many different tactics that we all use in a grooming shop to avoid any kind of conflict or problem with this. But all he has to do is just move this way, and you bang into him with your clippers. Right? Now you've knocked the wart, and it can bleed. It's not that she's cut it, it's that she's bumped into it. The dog can have the same darn thing if he's walking along and he bumps into the cupboard. Say he's got a wart on his head, and he bumps into the cupboard because he's blind and can't see, bonk, bumps into something, and he knocks that wart. He can still make that wart bleed from the same thing. You see where I'm going? And I think owners wrongly blame dog groomers and for things that they really can't avoid. But you'll help your dog groomer avoid bumping into things and having problems if you bring them in more often, right? Rather than saying, oh, I don't want to go in, I don't want to go in, I don't want to go in, because every time I go in, she takes him really, really, really short. Well, that's because he's matted and you've gone overdue, and she knocks these warts, and it's just hell for a couple of days or a couple of weeks. I've had Bijans that have come in where they have so many warts, like we're talking like 50 on a small 15-pound Bichon, where it is so bad that what I do is I'll scissor that area away completely and then shave around. It takes longer to do it, but it seemed as though when the dog was coming in for grooming, I wasn't bumping into them and I wasn't hurting the warts. But here's what would happen. For some reason, the dog would lay in his bed after he'd been groomed, and he would lick and chew and bite at his warts. So that was another piece that was like, well, how are we going to deal with this, right? So another tip would be to talk to your dog groomer when you go in, and try to come up with a solution. that is going to benefit the dog, rather than maybe blaming. And I don't mean that people mean to do it, but I think sometimes the tone that people use, well, the last time that he was in, Terrie, this is what happened. Well, you know what? I hadn't seen you for 8 months. Yeah, shit's going to happen, right? It's kind of what you're thinking. Sometimes I say it, sometimes I don't. So, you know, I'm trying to give tips that is going to help dog owners and help dog groomers have communications on these problem things, and warts is a huge one, a huge one. Usually the owners will come in, I've seen the dog, you know, 1,000 times. I know that there's a wart behind the ear, and you know, they're yelling as they're coming up the driveway, watch the wart behind the ear, watch the wart behind the ear. And I'm grateful that they remind me of it. I don't mind that they remind me of it, but it just shows you how much people run that story of that one time that something happened and the dog was bleeding because of the wart. And they usually think it's because the wart's been cut off, or the groomers nicked them. Not usually at all. You figure if you've got a wound on your skin, right, and you bump into it, or you scratch your skin, even gently, if it's a big wound, right, something's going to happen. Warts are kind of in that same category. Then they're very, not very difficult, they're very easy to deal with, but you have to understand that the last thing you want to do is not keep the dog clean, right? Avoid bathing the dog and avoid the groomer. You know, if you're going in every 3 months, don't go past that 3-month point, okay? After 10 weeks, any dog, doesn't matter whether they got warts or not, is starting to get caca, right? Caca. So if you've got challenges, after 3 months, it's nasty for everybody involved. So that's the biggest piece. Okay, I need to get to work. Audley would like to have some breakfast. So thanks for hanging out with me, and thanks for the replay watchers. Please do comment, ask questions. I go back and I look at every single one and I answer every single one. And yeah, I'm Terrie Crawford at TLC Dog Grooming in Hamilton, and I like to help dog owners take care of their dog grooming needs at home. Okay, have a good day and stay cool. It's gross, and it's not even, is it 8 o'clock yet? Oh, it's 9, sorry. But it's gross out there. Take care, have a good day everybody, bye-bye.